Imagine signing for a shiny, new Ventura County home, feeling like you've finally made it. Everything looks spotless, every surface feels untouched, and you're sure you bought the smart house. Then the real bills hit. The delays start and the problems show up, and where the brand new home should have been flawless, suddenly that home feels less like a win and more like a trap. So before you spend your savings on new construction, let me show you the 10 biggest reasons that these homes can cost you far more than you think. Hi, I'm Saul Carter. I'm all about business sense and common sense and that being that uncommon realtor. And I want to talk about all the 10 things you really need to think about when you're buying new construction that you don't necessarily deal with in other types of real estate. All right, number one is base prices can run 20 to 30% higher than you might think with comparable resale prices. And what does that mean? That means a 3-bedroom home in Moore Park that resales goes for about $900,000, which you can end up being a brand new construction where it's in that $1.1 million range for their base cost. And that leads me right into number two, which is your upgrades. Your upgrades are going to cost you a lot really fast. When you walk through that model home and you see that courtside counter and all those other really nice looking cool things, those cost a lot of money to do, and they're going to put them in the model because they look so good, and they should be in your house if you can afford it. But if you can't afford it and you need to come into that base level and you're going to add 15, 20 grand, 50 grand right off the bat before you ever get started. All right, and number three, lot premiums. Now, when you're buying a house that is on the resale market, you don't necessarily buy lot premiums. Now, is that really kind of baked into the cake? It is, but when you're dealing with a new home construction, they'll take a cul-de-sac spot or something that overlooks a hill or something like that, doesn't have anything built behind it, and they will charge a premium. And so it makes it a lot harder to get that location that you really love. Now, does that mean that you can't do it? No, but that's something you need to watch out for because you're going to get a lot premium if you're not watching out. All right, one of the things that really can hit people, and they do not expect it in new construction, is Melrose. And Melrose is a tax for school districts and things like that, and it is in excess of all of our other property taxes. It's something that typically comes out monthly, and it's a wonderful kind of end around Prop 13. But it is out there, and it's really much more prevalent in new construction and typically goes away after time. But if you're in a newer construction home or brand new construction, I bet you there's Melrose attached. So be sure to ask that before you ever get started to find out if you're going to be paying a lot more in property taxes than you thought. All right, number five is when you're dealing with the lender from the buyer or the sellers, that new construction sellers, they have their preferred lenders. Watch out for their fees. If they just use generic fees, a lot of times those things end up being kind of lowballed. And so when it comes down to the very end of the escrow and you're sitting there at the table and you're signing your loans and all that other stuff, all of a sudden those numbers are a lot higher, but you're already been waiting for your home for 6 months and you got all this money and time invested, and then they throw in some numbers that you weren't expecting because they're the real numbers and they are not the numbers that were kind of lowballed to begin with to get you interested, right? So watch out for that. Make sure that you really pay attention to what those numbers are and find out what the realistic numbers are. At the very least, throw it into something like ChatGPT and say, hey, are these numbers realistic? And is this something that I can count on in 6 months to be around the same price every single month? All right, now let's talk about those build quality and delay nightmares. All right, number 6 on my list is kind of shoddy workmanship. And this isn't every builder, but man, you can run into it, and every builder has to do their own inspections as they go through. But if they do a subcontractor that does a poor job in an area, you can definitely find yourself in a really bad position with loose roof tiles or shingles, then all kinds of other things. They're building where they're spotting gaps in frames and all kinds of other stuff, things that they'll blame on weather or not, or other things. But what it comes down to is poor workmanship. And a lot of times these brand new builders are using subcontractors, and the subcontractors are hiring out, other subs. You never know who's actually building the home. And so what do you want to do? You want to make sure that your builder is reputable and does a good job of inspecting the home themselves before they ever put it into your hands, and make sure that you buy this in their timeline, not yours, right? All right, and then we're talking about number 7 on my list, is that's supply chain crunches. So when there's any kind of hiccup in the market, you can run into running out of AC units or other things like that, like water heaters. I've seen one house in the old place that I used to live that they literally ran out of water heaters in the area, which seems like a crazy thing to me. And it was just a week or so delay. But when you're counting on a move-in date and all of a sudden these delays add up, and they can really start stretching out that actual close date and, more importantly, the move-in date, right? Number 8 on my list is the delay that really turns things upside down and transforms that closing. And it's when your rate lock runs out because the construction was not done and you can't close because it's not done. And then you get put in this pressure position. So you either need to close this loan because your rate lock, let's say you got yourself into a rate that was like 6.35, and all of a sudden the rates have gone up to almost 7. And you're like, oh man, but they're not done with construction and you're getting pressure to close, but you don't want to buy a property that isn't move-inable, right? And so you get into a situation to where you're between this rate lock and actually be able to move in. Now, make sure that you don't really stress about that, because the one thing you want to do if you're buying new construction is buy a property that you can move into immediately. Don't get yourself caught into a situation where you're trying to avoid that little bit of a percentage. But when you're buying new construction and it takes 3 to 6 months to actually finish the home that you put that deposit on and all your other things, you can run into situations like that where interest rates have gone up from whenever you got your original lock. And so be careful of that. Watch out for that specifically. And then number 9 on my list is the CCRs, which is the covenants and restrictions and covenants, conditions, and restrictions. And there can be some crazy things in there. So be sure to sit down and read them. Now, on all of these things, with new construction, my biggest piece of advice is to take that extra time to do those inspections that you would just as if you were buying a resale home. And what does that mean? That means you're going to pay an inspector to go out and inspect things as things are going on. If that means you're sitting out an inspector 2 or 3 times over the course of 6 months at different stages, when they say, hey, we're done with this part, it's worth the $400, $600 to send somebody out there to have them inspect that property to make sure it's up to snuff, a third party, right? And you would do this if you're buying a resale home, right? You're going to send out a home inspector and get the roof inspected and all these other inspections. Don't just count on the construction crew to do everything right. You want to get a third party to come out and inspect. And along those lines too, whether it's the CCRs or your estimates on your loan or all these other things, you want to make sure that you're really paying attention to those things and reading them up front and ahead of time so you don't get yourself caught in a pickle, right? And so what am I saying? I'm not saying that you cannot go buy new construction, but there are some certain specific things you need to really worry about to make sure that you're not caught in a situation that is putting you out of your house and making you buy it before it's actually ready to go, or all kinds of other situations. Do your due diligence and buy wisely. All right. Thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for more tricks and tips, please subscribe below, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.